Welcome to the Veterinary Marketing Podcast, where it's all about helping your veterinary practice attract, engage, and retain clients. Broadcasting a new podcast every Monday from sunny Southern California, here's your host, Brandon Bashirs.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode number 119 of the Veterinary Marketing Podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today is going great over here. Today we're going to be talking about what you should be paying for when it comes to your marketing, when it comes to your content. Should you be paying to distribute your content? Should you be paying to push it out there on different platforms? Where should you be creating content? Where should you be spending time? Things like that. It's a question that I get all the time. And a lot of practices have been seeing really good growth in their practice. And I feel like most of it has been just the economy driving growth in most practices. For the most part, a lot of practices are very, very busy. In fact, it's hard for them to hire new vets, is what I keep hearing. It's like, man, I'm trying to get a new vet and I can't get somebody to work here. I'm overly worked and there's just no extra time. So if you're one of those practices, it might be counterintuitive, but I still think you should be getting your content out there, paying for content, and at least setting up systems so that if the economy ever does turn here, which it always does, right? There's always cycles to the market. It'll help you to be protected in the event of a down cycle in the economy. So I think that this is kind of right now the golden age of digital marketing. I'm going to explain what I mean by that and why I think it's an opportunity that you shouldn't be passing up for your veterinary practice. So before we begin, I'd like to mention a few things. First, I'd like to thank the sponsors of the show. First sponsor that I would like to mention is Dr. Busby's Toe Grips. Toe grips are non-slip nail grips that fit onto dogs' toenails to enable instant traction on hard surface floors and stairs. They help to improve mobility and stability. They reduce the risk of slip and fall injuries and help to restore confidence. They do this by allowing the nails to grip, unlike socks and boots, which interfere with the dog's natural gripping mechanism. So if you'd like to learn how to sell toe grips at your practice, you can go to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/toe grips. That's veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/TOEGRIPS. And you can sell them in your veterinary practice. They are sold through wholesale or through MWI, which is pretty cool. They're an amazing product and definitely want to check them out. I'd also like to mention that this episode is being brought to you by MWBH CPA. So if you're extremely busy, like almost every veterinary practice owner that I know is, or manager, or anybody inside of a veterinary practice is extremely busy, you're really busy. And so if you throw managing your bookkeeping, tax planning, inventory management, tax law updates, and all of these other things into that mix, it makes even more work for you. Ben and Matthias, the owners of MWBH CPA, love this stuff. They love planning. They love finding out about the new tax laws, and they're the perfect partners to have in your corner to help you manage and grow your veterinary practice's finances. So from bookkeeping to tax planning, tax prep, they've got you covered. If you'd like to watch an on-demand webinar that they've recorded and it teaches cash flow management for your veterinary practice, head on over to veterinarymarketingpodcast.com/CPA. All right, so let's get into today's episode. So first, I want to say sorry for the lack of episodes. I've been extremely busy. If you want to know what I've been up to, I mentioned that in episode 118 and a half. But I've been extremely busy and I've had just a ton of fun and have been testing and trying all kinds of new things across multiple different industries, marketing platforms, and all kinds of things. So I've been having a great time and been learning a lot. And one thing that I've been learning and seeing is that I really believe right now that we are in a very unique time when it comes to digital marketing. So what do I mean by that? Well, first, let me tell you a few things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about why is it such a unique time in digital marketing? Should you be paying to distribute your content? What kind of content should you be distributing? And then we're going to talk about the most common reasons why you should be out there spending money on digital marketing. And then once you wrap that up, I'm going to tell you the 3 places that I think you probably should be spending money with digital marketing. The 3 different ad platforms. So let's jump into this really quick. So I mentioned that I think it's kind of the golden age of digital marketing for small businesses. And there's a few reasons why I believe that. Number one is that the access that you have to marketing tools is ridiculously amazing. If you were to go out and create an ad campaign and you wanted to put it on a bunch of channels, from social media platforms to pay-per-click ad platforms to video platforms like YouTube, you have the same tool set that all of the major corporations have, for the most part. I mean, you don't have huge creative departments and things like that. But if you want to go put an ad out on Facebook, you could compete directly with GMC or Coca-Cola or all of these other big players out there. And so that's amazing. For the first time in history, you don't have to go through a massive ad agency to go out and reach consumers. So through history, we've had just traditional ways to advertise out there. You've had TV, radio, newspapers. Direct mail was, a little bit more direct, but it was very cost-effective. The cost was very high. It wasn't very cost-effective, and it was time-consuming. And the results were not immediately measurable, especially if you're doing multiple campaigns. It was hard to tell what was actually working and things. And so with digital marketing, you have instant results, very, very easy to create content or create ads and things like that. And so it's really an amazing time for small businesses. So that being said, a question that I get from a lot of people is, should I pay to distribute my content? So it used to be that you'd put stuff on Facebook or Instagram or anywhere, and you just would get organic distribution. And the rules definitely change all the time. And so the only way to consistently know that your content is going to get out there is to actually pay for it to get it distributed. And so I think that you absolutely should be paying for the distribution of content, and that you should have some budget that's put aside, not to necessarily direct response, where you're just trying to get a response on your, we're putting out an ad for new clients, or we're putting out an ad for a boarding special that we're doing, or whatever it is that you're working on. I think that you need to be boosting out posts that are just content so that you can stay in front of clients. And the reason that I think you should be doing that is because right now there's still not a lot of competition. So let's talk about the landscape in digital marketing really quickly. So right now on Facebook, there are more than 5 million advertisers on Facebook. There's now over 1 million advertisers on Instagram as of March, which was the most recent data that I could find. And social media, especially, and digital marketing is a pretty small percentage of budgets of major corporations and major brands. If next time that you go on to Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, for that matter, anywhere that has digital ad spend, if you look, and the one exception is probably Google AdWords to this rule, but if you look, you're going to notice that there's not too many huge brands that are actually paying for a lot of ad spend. And in fact, I remember a big story was that GM was removing all of their Facebook advertising campaigns from Facebook. I think this was 2 or 3 years ago, and it was a big deal. They're like, we're not going to do this anymore. It's not making sense for our company, which is insane because it's measurable, it's scalable, and you can get huge amounts of awareness. So I'm not sure why they did that, but it was very interesting. But these huge players are not in the space to the extent they are in other places, with TV and radio and all these other things. There is a lot less competition. And so I still think that digital marketing is really in its infancy right now. And I think that people will look back and say, man, I really wish that I would have gone and built up a brand. And, I even remember the good old days back in 2008 and 2009 in Facebook advertising when I was just getting started. And it was insanely cheap. And I had no clue what kind of a gift I had back then. So I wish that I would have went and spent tons more, because I would have been able to increase my audiences that I would have now. And so, it's amazing how quickly the rules change within Facebook and Instagram and all of these other ad platforms that are out there, that it's getting a lot more expensive than it was, but still it's cheap compared to, I think, what it will be. And so a good example of this, something to look at, is Google AdWords. Especially if you're on a nationwide scale, you can look and see that AdWords have some pretty expensive cost per clicks. I think the highest cost per click terms are always financial terms, but they're up in over $100 per click, depending on the term. Now with veterinary, you're going to be looking at somewhere between, I would say, $2 and $7 per click, depending on your area, the competition, and things like that, which is still pretty expensive, especially when you compare it to Facebook. But with AdWords, there's been it's definitely established. I mean, the golden years of AdWords was probably 2004, 2005 in there, where it was really, really cheap and you could drive tons of traffic. But then as more advertisers came on, the prices kept going up, and it became established like it is today. So if you wanted to break into a specific niche, or if you wanted to get in there, there's a bunch of already established players in that space who know what is working, they know what kind of offers to produce, and it's a lot more difficult to try and beat out those established companies. Now, as a veterinary practice, though, and talking about extremely local, regional businesses, it's still pretty simple to get in there and compete, especially if there's a lot of competition. I think you should be on AdWords for sure, but it's not as difficult as if you were trying to, say, start a mortgage brokerage or something like that, because then you have all of the big banks and all of the big companies that are competing in there that you're having to compete with. So even though it is a little bit more expensive than Facebook or Instagram or these other platforms, I think it's definitely still a good place to be advertising. But I'm bringing all of this up because right now I feel like we are in a land grab where I think that you should be trying to onboard as many likes as possible. And when I say as many likes as possible, I see people that are creating content that is trying to go viral, and when it goes viral, they dilute their page by having people all over the country like it. I think it needs to be laser targeted for your clients or prospective clients in your area, and try and get as much attention as you can. And so what is attention? That's things like clicks, likes, views, things like that. So people become aware with your brand. So we are definitely still in the infancy of digital marketing, especially when it relates to social media, but it's getting more established all the time. So it's very, very important that we are getting our content out there. And so there's 4 reasons that I've come up with that I think you should be really putting your content out there and putting money behind your content out there. And so reason number 1 is it is still cheap. If you do targeted ads across multiple platforms, it's still very, very cheap. And you can have the great targeting features that you need to reach people locally to your business. So there are still cheap pay-per-click ads out there too with AdWords, Yahoo ads, and things like that. So it's definitely something that you should look at. It will not be the case, especially as more competition comes into your area. And I think too, one thing that might change things as well is if people start having more difficulty in business, if the economy starts to turn, people start coming a little bit less into practices and things like that. I think people are going to start being creative about how to acquire clients, and they're going to start paying for ads, trying to drive people in, and there's going to be more competition. So if you can create lists of clients and onboard clients right now when it is good and when you have money to spend on digital marketing, I think that's something that you would want to be working on. So right now it's still cheap. Another thing that I'm seeing is that big companies are not on these platforms at scale, with the exception of pay-per-click ads. So, last time you saw a big JCPenney's ad, right? Probably not very often, except for maybe, like a Macy's ad or Nordstrom ads, things like that. You don't see them at scale. And that's simply because I feel like they're just still clinging on to that old marketing, trying to make the old stuff work. And the agencies that they're working with probably are making more money from those placements and just trying to keep things the way they are. But as more companies start to go bankrupt and they, see, hey, we're going to have to change what we're doing. How are we going to sell more products? How can we change this, right? It's going to be interesting to see how they change their digital marketing strategy, especially to reach new age demographics. And so it's pretty clear they're going to have to go where the attention is, and the attention is just getting less and less and less on TV, on radio, and on print, which is where they're dominating right now. And so, especially as they go after millennials, the ad spend is going to be transitioning more onto all of the other ad platforms like Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook, things like that. And so they will transition, and it's going to get a lot more competitive. So one thing too that I think, here's a reason why you should be paying for your content to be put out there, and also paying for ads, is that people are engaging with the world differently. People don't watch commercials. They watch things on demand. They watch things on Hulu and Netflix, and cable companies are having to adapt the way that they sell their programming because people just aren't buying cable anymore. And so traditional ways for people to, interrupt your attention, advertisers to interrupt your attention, it's really changed. And so you're going to have to reach these clients on these platforms. And it's, again, I think just a huge benefit if you can get out in front of them and build that audience, especially when it's cheap right now. So across the board, I think that we're going to have a lot more competition. And more competition means it's going to just continue to get more difficult to reach people. So if you can get out there, create as much content as possible, or create content consistently is what I would say, instead of create as much content as possible. So get a content strategy, build out content, and then publish that content. So it is valuable to have people's time and attention. So that being said, where should you be creating content? Where should you be publishing and distributing content? Number one, I think, is a no-brainer, is Facebook. You should be on Facebook. You should be blogging, creating blog content, and working to get as many of your clients and potential clients' eyes on your Facebook page and on your content through Facebook. Another thing is Instagram. Instagram is really easy as far as a content creation platform to create cool stuff inside of your practice and engage with people. And I think Instagram is only going to get more valuable from a marketing perspective. There's so many cool new Instagram ad types out there, and they're innovating that platform because it's linked to Facebook's ad platform. So that's really, really cool. Now, those are the two kind of obvious ones. Another obvious one is also, I think that you should be putting content out, not content, but you should have pay-per-click ads running on AdWords. AdWords just did a change of their platform, and I feel like AdWords is coming to a point too. They're trying to really compete with Facebook, and they're making a bunch of changes, and I feel like they're becoming more user-friendly. If you have an AdWords account, you can call your AdWords rep. They will help you. They will return your calls. That's something cool that Facebook doesn't have. So if you're thinking about AdWords, I would say give it a test, set up small budgets, and really focus on regional transactional type searches. So here's one that may not be so obvious that I think is a really, really good opportunity, and that's YouTube. I think YouTube as an ad platform, now this is done through Google AdWords, but you can create retargeting lists and target people who've opted in, who are either prospects or prospective clients or actual clients, and then try to reach them on YouTube. And YouTube has right now, back in, I want to say June or May or June, I can't remember, there was a big problem that happened within YouTube. And that was one of their largest creators, actually the creator that has the most subscribers out of anybody. His name is PewDiePie. He had a big Wall Street Journal fiasco where they said he was anti-Semitic and all kinds of things. And basically advertisers left the platform at scale. And so they've revamped their ad platform and things, but I still see right now that ad rates within YouTube are very, very cheap. And so you can get views and set up views for a penny per view, and it works really, really well. So people use YouTube like crazy still, and it's a great way to engage and reach your clients. So there's a few ways that you can do YouTube ads. I'm going to definitely do an episode about YouTube here in the future, because I think it still is a great place to be putting your content. And we'll talk about that and how to use it. But I think you should be trying and testing out video ads within YouTube, just because you can get views that are comparable to the price of Facebook views. When you boost a post that's a video on Facebook, if you were to create a retargeting list and put that on YouTube, you could get similar distribution prices, which is really, really cool. So I really think that those are some of the places that you should be spending money on. And the kind of content that you should be putting out there are awareness content. So letting people become aware of you, things like who works in your practice, interesting stories about people who work in your practice, introducing yourself, stuff like that. Evaluation type posts, which is things like interesting equipment that you have, interesting services that you have, interesting specialties that make you unique. Talk about those, so give people a reason to evaluate. Hey, this is interesting. I've never thought of that. I should think about coming in and getting that done. Or conversion content absolutely needs to be spent money on. So that's one thing that a lot of practices aren't doing. So what is conversion content? That's, hey, come in and get this special. It's dental month. Here's how you can redeem this special, and actually be posting out, paying for content to post out that explains that specifically. So if it was me, the way that I would be kind of running a ratio of content out there, if I was spending $10 per day, $4 of it would be for awareness, $3 would be for evaluation, and $3 would be for conversion. So that's kind of how I would run it, just as a really general overview. So in today's episode, just as a quick recap here, we talked about why I think it's the golden age of digital marketing, why you should absolutely be spending money to get your content out there, to be building your list and building your audience, and how you should be spending your money and on what platforms. So if you have any questions or comments or need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. Don't forget, subscribe in iTunes or Google Play. And if you could do me a huge favor, please leave me an honest review in iTunes. I would really appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening and taking the time to listen today. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on next week's episode.